Welcome to this inaugural episode of The Heavenly Tea. It's a tea party. It's a tea party for me with people I love dotted around the world, talking about things I feel are important, everyday things that we have to deal with. But I'm coming from the perspective of a new earth we're creating, a different frequency, a different vibration, a better, beautiful, aware, enlightened way of doing things. And we're just going to talk through, have a laugh, be a bit naughty, have some fun, be serious. And today I have Adrienne Prince. She has created something incredible called Team GAIA. It's all about personal awareness, the awareness of how we relate to the planet, the entire energy system of the planet and us in it, building team spirit communities, enlivening and enabling people. And that's what her speciality is. She does these amazing genius sessions where she'll look into, you could call it into the Akash of each person, the soul essence, the spirit, reflect back to you more of who you are and give you a new fresh perspective to enable and empower you to do what is truly good for you in your life and therefore good for others, of course. So she is joining me all the way from San Diego. For me, that's all the way because she's in California. I'm in the UK, in Somerset, cute little county of Somerset. A little bit warmer perhaps than the northern counties. So summer, think of that, the warmth of the place. And tea is, of course, a British ceremony. It's something I personally love. A little moment of stillness, of calm, taking yourself out of the everyday pressures. And, of course, you can drink any kind of tea. There are many. Tonight, I think I'm drinking chamomile and pine needle tea. But join us. Come every week. See who I've got next to talk to. I'm having a whale of a time. And you will find some gems and wisdom from these beautiful people I have the pleasure of talking with. So with that, let us start. I need to add that we actually had a first session, which, of course, technologically speaking, disappeared into the ether of the internet. So what you're finding is us in the second part of this conversation, but there are some beautiful gems. Enjoy it.
Okay, well, where were we?
It was about forthright women, and you talked about maybe this difference between possibly a slightly more polite Brit and the more direct American. So I listened to Roseanne Barr talking to Tom Numbers of Psych Club. I don't know if you know his channel.
No.
He's a Brit. Okay, he's one of those, he's like... how do I describe him? He's a very sweet being, okay, and he works in gematria. That's his thing. And he very much on the Trump gematria scheme of things, deciphering and looking at synchronicities and connections. And he had Roseanne on his show, and she went all over the place emotionally. I mean, you know, her heart is in the right place and her mind is fast, but I think she must have been so broken by the system, probably encouraged into a monster on one side, just like spewing. And on the other side, you could see the hurt that she's experienced through the system, chewing her up and spitting her out because she was no longer containable. So an interesting character, but no holds, no limits on her, right? And I was thinking, that's a little scary.
Yeah, she's one of the more erratic beings, definitely. If you've ever seen her YouTube channel or whatever, she's got some strange ways of being for sure. And I think that MK Ultra really messes people up.
Yeah.
It makes them so they don't know what's up and what's down. They're very reactive. They're either programmed or they're complete hot messes, one or the other, you know.
So where do you think, if we talk about these, so she's kind of off the scale because of what she's been through and being pushed through, kind of grated up and stuck back together again is my feeling too. But we've got this sort of, in England, women do not complain. They either become bullies, and then I've just finally discovered, my 51st year on the planet, that I'm allowed to say, I just turned to a colleague recently and I just turned to her and I said, yeah, but don't take it out on me. Shut up. It was like, whoa, because she was just so used to bullying. It was just second nature for her. And I was just like, nah. Quietly, just like, no. So there is this, either you say nothing or you are the tough one in the room. That's the anyway, what I see mostly over here. I think it's similar in the States. It's just different degrees, isn't it? Because you have that kind of, there's all kinds of ways that we work, and it doesn't matter whether you're male or female. It's that inward vulnerability that we call femininity and that outward aggressivity that we call masculinity. I don't think those are accurate either. But it's that kind of mixture, how much of it is in the mix with people. And I, of course, want to encourage people to dare to say, oh, yes, don't take it out on me.
Yeah, definitely. That's amazing. I feel like every moment gives us opportunities for uncovering new ways of doing things. And sometimes we have a really satisfying interaction. Most of the time we have fair to middling interactions. And every once in a while we have a real disaster of an interaction. But every moment we have a choice as to, do I want to come at this with conviviality? Do I want to come at this with curiosity? Do I want to be stern? Yeah. And I think that, God bless us, but patriarchy has probably caused a fair amount of distortion. The idea, I think that men may have a deep phobia of being wrong, just like women have a deep phobia of being seen as a bitch, because when men are wrong in a heavily patriarchal situation, it's a death sentence. If a woman is a bitch in a heavily patriarchal situation, for lack of a better term, patriarchy is just the pocket term we're going to use for an intense colonization of the mind. But yes, it's obviously not just patriarchy. That's not accurate, but it's the best way to describe it at this moment if we want to.
One of the computer programs, isn't it, that they effectively developed and inserted into our consciousness. Yes.
And in fact, even calling it patriarchy is more of the divide and conquer agenda, right? So I don't know if we call it toxic colonization, something like that.
Yeah, that's very good. Yes.
So under toxic colonization, for men or for anyone, if you're wrong, it's either a death sentence, shame, real demotion. You get pulled down a peg, and that they may respond in this very visceral survival kind of a way. And
should we talk more about what you see? Because you and I know what you're talking about when you say toxic colonization. Should we do a little quick history of the world?
Okay, have at it. Let's see what we can do. That's a quickie.
I was just thinking about Ashiana Dean's, all her Keylontic science with the Voyager books, and she looked at the last 550, was it million or billion? No, I think it was million years. That's enough. But so the toxic colonization, who would you say was responsible for that, for curating that program for the colonization? What group of entities are you saying that is?
Well, the way I'm looking at it is more from like an earth history, a junior high history point of view, which is that when one culture would seek to colonize another, they would come in and tell the people who are already there, no, the way you're doing things is all wrong. And if you want to survive, you're going to do things our way. And so you now need to have these opinions, you need to eat these foods, you need to dress this way, you need to hold these values. And so, this opinion is no longer cool, this opinion is cool, and there's like a subliminal threat of death if you don't comply, So I'm just thinking of like when the Spaniards come into the Americas, or when England goes into Africa, or, any other colonization situation. You're being asked to eradicate all of your common sense and take on a set of really, really artificial values based in hierarchy. So maybe instead of patriarchy, we could also just say hierarchy. A hierarchical worldview says that if you don't have the oppressor's value system, you're going to be harmed in some way.
Yeah. And that's a very interesting trick, isn't it? The hierarchy, because it programs our minds to believe that we're somewhere here and there are betters above us. And of course, that's such an easy control mechanism. I always have this, I use this example of, imagine, I think it was the Sarugaru tribe in the Amazon. Okay, I was looking at how they made their tools and how they accepted new pieces of Western culture into their society and how it morphed and changed them. And brought them then to come into the big cities and leave their tribes and their families, seeking something, that they were told they should be seeking, a Western type life. And it started because someone came in, a white guy with a gun, and said, here, this is really easy. You point, shoot, and you can kill the monkey. And they had been carefully going to collect, the poison from the frog, tricky little critters to catch in the first place. You need tree climbing skills, agility, awareness, precision, quietness, oneness with the forest in order to find that frog. Then not only that, then you make the arrow with the poison dart on it, and then you have to catch your monkey. So that's a whole different scenario to a gun, point, shoot, dead, boom. And yet the gun won because it was perceived as this other hierarchy, and all it was the biggest bully in the room. So the toxic colonization is that we've been led to believe, like, someone just died recently, apparently in the UK. They're having a ceremony, I think, tomorrow, and she was apparently part of this hierarchy that we all believed was marvelous, and we must bow and curtsy to her. And in fact, it was just a very clever set of tricksters, part of this whole system that took over our beautiful human soul spirits of divine source spark, endless creativity, and said to us, oh, no, you're lacking. You've got to follow our patterns, and you're wrong, and come and follow our system. So what the brief history of the world that I think I just wanted to acknowledge is that this glorious place, this experiment of source that the earth is, with its various levels of evolution, some say we're going to move into other higher level earths. And there's been another force that decided to experiment with turning away from that. We call it the dark side. It was, the Nephilim, the fallen angels, blah, 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 there's so many names, came and tried to bend it all to their will, and they realized they could tap our energy, siphon it off, use it as a battery, because they had detached themselves from the original source and their endless creativity and energy. So they needed something that had that, and we were that battery source, and they're those toxic colonizers, and they're the ones we're chucking out right now. So we have to re-find ourselves. Who are we? How can we say no to someone? How can we stand there quietly when we know we're holding our truth, and someone's saying, no, you're wrong, you're lacking, there's something wrong with you, you're broken.
Isn't that interesting? It's all just a subterfuge to make very plain bullying and oppression look more genteel.
Yes.
And as she sips the porcelain cup. So England has been quite the bully. They've done some pretty bad things, from brute force to getting an entire continent hooked on opium. They've done all kinds of sneaky things, and they've been able to polish it, to make it look, and this is a very reptilian kind of a thing, to be able to say, oh, no, it's not just bullying. It's that you were weaker and you couldn't defend yourself because clearly you're inferior. You know what I mean? And to make
do all these
glamorize it.
kind things now. Now you can have your tea with some milk and sugar and porcelain and yes,
with gunshots in the background. You know, you could hear an execution in the background or something, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I had an ancestor, Captain Barclay. He was the guy in that black hole of Calcutta. I don't know if you remember that, in India, when the Raj, whoever they were, anyway, the white trained army went in and took over India, and he was following orders, and he had to shut the door, and 100 people just died of suffocation in a little room. And, you know, his argument was, I was just following orders, but that was an ancestor of mine. And we all, you know, these kind of links, they're there, and we do it because, as you mentioned earlier, it's that deep fear of the death and dissolution, because that's one of the easiest deceptions, isn't it? Oh no, you're making one. Yeah, if you're taught that death is so big and a big deal, it's the end of you, then you're so easily controllable. And that myth is probably the same thing as getting really angry with someone, because that's like a little death almost, isn't it? It's like the death of the relationship. If you go and you break it with some fury, it sort of kills it in that instant. Not saying it can't be rebuilt, but it certainly puts a full stop to any kind of relationship going on. And that's what we haven't learned, how to say no quietly. Or I don't mean being quiet. We need to be loud too, but we don't know how to use these skills because we're always fearing death.
Right. So this idea of like being able to stand in your power and just calmly assert something with the knowledge, it's a bigger thing than it sounds like, because underneath it, because the history of the planet has basically been one of trauma-based mind control. In other words, you're polite so you don't get smacked across the face. Pretty simple. So you take all the way the thing of simple execution, you know, you cross a line, you get killed, and it calibrates down infinitely so that sensitivity, you know, like the elephant that's chained to a tiny post, you know, the elephant's already been taught that it can't run. So it barely takes, like, you know, just a thumbtack, and the elephant's not going to move because those calibrations of that original trauma have been like, ooh, I'm even heading in that direction. You know, you activate that neural network. And they find that it happens over the course of lifetimes too, that a trauma in another lifetime could still cause you to be hesitant in this one.
What do you do if, and this is what a lot of us are hoping we're heading towards, but let's just say this scenario, what do you do if all of the elephants wake up at once?
Right.
Is there anything in our power that can prevent that turning into complete mad mayhem?
Well, I feel that what really makes people into mad mayhem has to do with like suppressed anger. So in some ways, if we could, maybe that's what light workers are here to do, is to make things safe enough so that as they discover their truth, they don't go automatically into some weird ricochet, that they can be eased gently into a happier world without it having to be complete mayhem. But mayhem is always a possibility, I suppose.
You know, I had this vision years ago, I think it was in 2000 or something, and it stuck in my mind so much. I can't even remember whether I told you. I probably have before. But I was dressed in this purple dress, and you know those kind of big, long princessy sleeves. It had, you know, it was a thing of impact. And what happened was, in the dream, there was a crowd who was starting to get out of control. A big, closely packed group of people. It was some kind of evening time. And what I did in the dream is I found something to stand up on. I think I might even have been supported by someone else. It was either being held up by some people, or I found something to stand on. And I just started singing sound, not words, just sound. And I was just like this, I've got to develop my voice so it's that big so I can do it. It was like, that's what I woke up with. So what do you think? Do you think we've got tools like that we may need to when the elephants sort of unchain their poles and realize they've been thumbtacked down?
I definitely do. I feel that this is what I work with a lot in Team Gaia. The idea that a lucid core frequency, like a single note that emanates, is enough to calm the waters. So if I were you in that dream, I would have done exactly the same thing. I would have found a way to sing like a perfect note and just let that reverberate, and that somehow with that total assurance, I would have been able to just calm the crowd. That is an instinct, I think, that we end up going to, is that if the levers of power, if you can't do something to make it better and you can't run around in a panic, that's not going to help. Then there's this part of us that steps in at that moment, this like I am, this great I am that we are, that just comes in and just emanates. And so, yes, that is very much what I call our divine will in Team Gaia, this idea that we steer the planet itself towards a positive future through the force of this higher self of ours that kicks in when running around and doing things just doesn't cut it anymore.
So this is this power of our individual expression, isn't it? It takes us back full circle to the
still point.
Yes, to dare to completely be that, because more and more of us are, I got tingles all over this. More and more of us are now in that place that it's not that we've got all our memories back. I mean, that's what Q told me. He said it was just, I've got all my memories back. It's like, yes, okay, it's not really memories. It's like saying, I don't know what I am, but I know I have access to that, and I know what I am made of. So therefore, I can be in any moment, like you said, when it's called through you, beyond the everyday action, but there is a frequency pulled through you for a moment, for an event, for a specific enabling frequency change. We have that. And those of us who have it are starting to really kind of know it. We're really knowing it. And now I think it's that time of, we haven't got much time of this. You know, I'm surprised we're still in 2022, that more kind of crazy changes haven't happened by now. But this is good. It means everything has been sort of slowed down so that we can make all these shifts incrementally without going crazy. The world is, you know, it's still in some kind of stasis. So this is the time, it seems, that all of us are finding this, what can a human body conduct? What can a human body express with this instrument that we've got, which is supposedly flesh and bone, but it's actually, of course, energy incorporated. And that's what we're discovering in this moment of time. What can we express?
I get so grateful when I think about some of the things that the New Age movement has been teaching people and training us reflexively to go to. I feel this thing that we're talking about is a function of this idea of getting grounded and centered. And I'm like, so we've gotten so good at getting grounded and centered. It's almost a reflex, you know, through the meditation, through the yoga. I know we have a lot to complain about with the New Age movement, but there's a few reasons why that was seeded with us, you know, why we were taught to, why it had to show up on the planet at a particular time. And it was so that it would teach us a few really core things about breathing and about that you're more than your mind. And you know what I mean? We're more than our mind, more than our opinions, more than our perspectives, that there's something in us that's beyond that is actually us. You know, all of the things. And so even though we think that the New Age movement has been sorely wanting, there's a few reasons why it had to show up. The idea that somebody else's perspective may be as hard won as ours and deserving of some respect, you know what I mean? Or that we're all subjective and therefore probably in error a good amount of time. And so therefore not to take even, we're more than our opinions, right? We're more than our positions. We're more than our politics. And this idea that you can read. I think, I hope. So I live in a college neighborhood, and it's got a lot of sororities and fraternities, and they run around in these packs of identically dressed to the nines, social rituals that they do together, i.e. parties or events, right? So these wild social rituals where they're all wearing different variations on the same outfit. Like they sent out a memo saying it's going to be jean skirts and red t-shirts today. And everyone's got like a different interpretation of the assignment, which is fun to watch. But I'd like to think that somehow, because of the yoga and meditation culture, that they can reach down inside of themselves at any moment and pluck the pearl of stillness, that somehow we've been taught enough about breathing and about being still and meditating and just knowing that even just if you know it's a good thing, that it's a thing that you can move into quickly and get out of because it's only really the head space that fights or needs to vindicate or has the sense like, ooh, I better prove myself right or I'll die, right? These men who are like, if I'm wrong, I will die, or if I'm wrong, if she has a valid complaint, I could lose my job, instead of like, well, yes, you could lose your job or you could make it right. So, yeah, it's very funny. And I feel
that brings me, oh, sorry, do you want to just finish that?
No, that was it.
Love it. I was just getting, when you get that kind of extra dimensional feeling of energy through you sometimes, so I just went into that state as you were talking.
I've got something right here.
Really powerful, yum. So I like this idea. And, we've got all these ideas about the solar flash is coming and it's going to switch everyone. And maybe. But definitely some kind of dimensional shift is what we're heading for. And the idea that if we are of source, of soul, of spirit, if we're made of that energy, which there could be nothing that can stop us from switching back to that in an instant. And I think that's, we have all this, as you said, the fear of death. It's like the elephant in the room. It's like, okay, but hang on a moment, because we actually have the ability in a split second to switch to source. And that's the biggest, fattest lie that has been, it's just been hidden from us. And so if you've got all the cute little sorority girls going out in their short jean skirts and their little red tops, and they're all going because they're 21, they can now get drunk, because I remember those places when I was at Purdue. And they nothing in their heads but cotton wool and candy and what their friend has got on. But wow, imagine if there is a frequency shift and it's a soul invitation to them to go with it. The natural thing is they're going to go with it. Bubbles, they float up and then they dissolve. They don't fall down first, they float up and dissolve. People have that source if they're a soul, and I don't know how there are probably ways to get into human bodies if you don't really have a soul, but you're still a something. So this is inevitable. And we're just dealing with the kind of shedding of the skin like reptiles have to go through when they grow. They have to shed a skin. So all this kind of crazy chaos. I still think that even if we had mass destruction, there are those spirits, and let's say we lose our bodies, and we go somewhere, we've still gone somewhere, we've moved, we're part of source. That is what we are.
We're still us, yeah.
So I don't think that's going to happen, but this is the generating, as we know, the whole generation system of the toxic, what was the word you used? Colonization. Yes, the toxic colonization. That whole dynamic is to just keep us in that crazy state of panic and fear that, we don't know what to do, and it's all going to... And the place where you can be quiet and still, and you find that place that you might have remembered from a moment of yoga, from a moment of breathing well, from a moment of relaxation, when you can stand to the bully and just say, no. And the fact that I can feel that in me and I couldn't decades ago. I always knew that was who I was, but I wasn't able. It was like I couldn't muster the energy to do it. And now I can, and I just have this feeling that we're just, it's like there's people who are true souls in their bodies. We could just switch and everyone could just fly with us wherever we're going. And it's really important to remember that we don't, even if we watch this crazy panorama of stuff on the mainstream media, I never watch that, I'm sure you don't, or the alternative media, it's all pretty crazy. And we just can pull back from it because we know ultimately there is it's all about energy. This is all about energy. Nothing else.
And it's about our ability to receive it or not receive it. Like, what if the entire oppression matrix on the planet is a giant deception based on people telling themselves, oh, I can't access this because I'm not XYZ. And therefore it just perpetuates, whereas it was all just a mind game to begin with, because you already had it, you already were it, you already could access it, and you were even accessing it without knowing. But because something in the mind says, oh, you're not allowed to go there, that somehow we're like, oh no, they won the war. For instance, well, you remember they used to have this funny little truism in the 60s of what if they threw a war and nobody showed up? Right? It's like they've only convinced you that there's a situation. You know, your particular experience might be completely different. I just find that so fun.
Well, yeah, it's like that little 12-year-old again. When I suddenly say, you know, it's not about you. It's they're in a bad place. They're in a bad mood. It's like, oh my God. So suddenly there was this separation. And if we could do that with everything, if you've got someone on the phone who's trying to criticize you and put you into a little tiny miserable place of shame and despair, and you know, hang on a moment, this is just not true. You could just watch it. This is what, you know, people talk about being the observer, but it's not even that. It's just like, what is true? What is true here? You know, and that's all I need to go from. It's like the stepping stones so I can navigate any crazy situation. And I like that because it just makes everything more fun. You can have crazy adventures because you know they're always going to turn out right.
Yes, that would be truly, this has been on my mind and heart quite a bit today, is, well, what would happen? What would it take? What kind of people live their lives as a great adventure? And what's the alternative? So I feel that people who live their lives as a great adventure have certain qualities. You know, they will say yes to possibilities more often, or opportunities. They will spot the opportunities and go for them. They will find work that they love, or make an active plan to do so. They will there's like a more playful approach to life but finding some way to get rid of that fear of death, to where you have such a strong anchoring in the eternal.
An everyday example for me, I was collecting pebbles for a garden path that I'm making in my new house, okay? And I was given a whole lot by a friend, and she had collected them from somewhere. And officially in Britain, we have this insane law that says you're not allowed to take pebbles from the beach. I wonder who they belong to. But right. Anyway.
They're the Queen's pebbles.
They are the Queen's. Oh, my goodness.
They're the Queen's pebbles, don't you know? Even your body is the Queen's.
Well, the Queen is now dead, so I can take some pebbles. And I was having a great time choosing these particular shapes and colours and just reveling in the pebbles. But in the back of my mind, I knew that I'm not supposed to be there doing that, but I'm doing it anyway. And so there were people coming by, and every so often that little thought would wiggle up from down deep inside me and say, ooh, they might not like what you're doing. They might say something to you. And then I just have to go, yeah, be quiet. Just put you over there. You're just a little worrisome thought. So I was having these internal dialogues while enjoying the beauty of these stones, collecting my pile. A woman came up to me, and I thought, okay, this maybe, this is a confrontation moment. Okay, how am I going to deal with it? And she just took her earphones out and she said, oh, are you looking to see if they've got fossils inside? And I just thought, oh, I love this, because there I was dealing with this fear that was trying to make its way and make a breaking demon of itself, right? And it was just, as long as I kind of took that little fear, the genie that was trying to grow, and I just held it and kind of put it into a little jar or whatever it wanted to do, and allowed the darkness to become something that might be nice. Along comes a woman, speaks to me, and talks about lovely things like finding crystals inside of stones. And I say, no, I'm making a design with them. And we have a laugh, and she loves it, and I love her, and it's just beautiful. So it's just that, it's that easy, isn't it? We can just go into that, it could be terrible. It was a little adventure to get pebbles that I'm not supposed to have. And now that pebble adventure had spread to other people, and there's whole stories with that path. But it's so good to see this. It's always like, which wolf do you fear? You know, the fear one, or do you do you feed the fear wolf or the love wolf? And it's how we deal with that on a moment by moment basis, isn't it?
Wow. You just reminded me that it turns out that it's not just fight, flight, but there's fight, flight, and then but one of the F's, there's many. It turns out that there's several reactions that we have to fear, but one of them is called fawning. And this is the reaction that people kind of have toward the queen, and why there are feminine dominants who make a plenty of money online. I just ran across a femdom channel, and I'm like, oh, they're taking the fear response, the one that goes towards fawning, and like opening that up and playing with it, for peak value. What's that?
Someone told me that's what I should do. This is when I was losing my children in that battle back in...
Become a dominant. It's like, no, I'm not very dominant.
This is what he was trying to help me. He was training me for the stage, actually. I was working in his band, and it was interesting, strange kind of magician type character. But that's what he thought I should do so that I would have the strength to confront. And I said, no, that's not who I am or what I want to be. You know, I don't want to be the aggressor.
I think it would have been therapeutic.
Well, maybe, but
it turns out these It turns out these femdoms are actually very nurturing. It's like it's a glove, it's a velvet glove, it's a velvet hammer. They're very nurturing and soft.
I met a couple of brilliant women. So I actually befriended this cool. She owned a top brothel in Berlin, and I think I met her in a clothing store, in fact. And she showed me around her brothel, which was just fascinating. It was completely fascinating. It was amazingly kitted out, all these different rooms for different things, and very highly trained staff, and amazing, interesting woman. I said, wow, she had a husband as well. And I said, how do you have a husband when you're such an assertive woman? This is incredible that you found someone you can have as your partner. And you could see that it was the solution to all these broken men. They were dealing with all the judges and the tops of the police and all those high-level men who had been in these horrible, constrained positions of do or die, and they only knew about punishment and unworthiness and grief, and it was just blah! And that was their solution. Their one way to move up the ladder of evolution a little bit was to go to her and be spanked and bashed around and humiliated and whatever in this careful, nurturing way. But it was nurture. It was a kind of nurture. It brought them up the scale. And it was just that, it was fascinating. It's just that that's not what I wanted to do. But
I think it would have been really therapeutic, but almost impossible to access. It would have been very therapeutic, and you would have had all the money you needed as well.
Yeah, and then I realized, interesting paradigm. You can't be a mother and have children, and you can't do that job. You can't do anything to do with children and be anywhere. And that was just like, right, okay, obviously it might be therapeutic, but no. But so glad I met her. I mean, wow, talk about fascinating. But it was because I was always trying to find, how can I access power? Just being trampled on all the time.
I hear you. It is so true. And even in personal relationships, I feel that, as for me anyway, I wonder if other women feel this way. My number one beef in relationships, the number one thing that would send me searching for help, would be How can I be heard? How can I be cherished? How can I be taken seriously? You know what I mean? Those basic needs of how can I show up as an equal in my own relationship, right? Because if the partner doesn't see you in all of your majesty, and you know you have more that they're not seeing, how can you bring that out? You know, I'm not saying do you have the opportunity to choose where you go to dinner, or, you know, but yeah, whose stuff is more important, you know, whose projects are more important, whose opinion is more important. That stuff still seeps into our relationships. Now, I thought that our topic today was going to be about how do you gently turn down somebody who's asked you out, who's utterly inappropriate. And so I was painting a spare room. I'm getting one of our rooms renovated in our house. And so as I was painting these walls, I was like having a good chuckle at, you know, my current dating etiquette, which is a lot of times if somebody inappropriate's asking me out, I will think and probably sometimes say, because it is San Diego after all, oh no, I think I'm probably too weird for you.
And yet, for me, that's almost just a little bit of self-denigration, isn't it? Because it's that you want to be kind, you don't want to be the bitch, but you also want to say you are not the right guy for me. And it's like an awareness that if you say something, I mean, we're told that if we say something to a man and it hurts their feelings, then it destroys them. It's like, what?
I definitely am with you on that. And also, like, that the worst thing that a woman can do to a man is to leave him. Like, he can murder you, set you up with children, abandon them, make you feel terrible, make you cook his meals while he's making you feel terrible. And the worst thing that you can do is to leave. Like, wow, how much power does that give us?
But so it was, I mean, I've journaled so much. We need to close this soon, don't we? I'm taking so much of your time. But I remember journaling so much about, you know, trying to find some power. What could I do? And, you know, I had the thing of what would I do differently if I were a man? Because I was looking at that toolbox that was available to the male. And I realized that was also distended and it wasn't accurate. So it was interesting to look through all of those things. But I was just searching always, how can I? And I found that the most power we had, I had this joke to myself, okay, so I have 3 beautiful children. Imagine if I turned around to that father and said, none of them are from you. You know, that's a big fat power. And that's cruel and stupid. But all of our powers up till now were always about not giving something, holding back, withholding. And actually what that meant was you were actually not giving to yourself and you were actually denying yourself. So I feel like it's only now that we're just starting to come into what true power is, and not only for the female but for the male, but this allowance of what is the wielding of true power. And it's nothing to do with denial, it's nothing to do with aggression. It could be loud, it could be quiet. So you can, you know, there's all those sort of new agey things. So you mustn't be loud, that's just unspiritual. How dare you? You know, you must and sit in a corner. And it's not to do with that, is it? But it's not what we've been practicing so far. It's something different. And that, I think, is that's what I want to do all this tea chat with, because I want us to bring that forward to inhabit our whole beings and to realize that we have power. And what is it? How can it express itself? What is it in every single possibility of our lives?
Yes, and I really feel that so I kind of Occam razors this down. Like, okay, so if I feel successful in this interaction with so and so, what does this give me? You know, if I feel that I have efficacy in my relationship, what does this give me? And I feel that in the end, it's about loving yourself unconditionally, knowing yourself well, knowing what you really want, knowing that you're at peace and can give yourself what you really want, whether anyone participates or not. You know what I mean? And that all of the other things in this world that we're trying to, like the workplace and having power in the workplace, all of these games that they try to pull us into playing are just games that we can also walk away from or win or lose, or it's no skin off your nose if your colleague thinks he's better because he does German opera, which, by the way, I took care of a woman in her 90s, and she quit her opera career over the fact that her coach, her first coach that she found once she got to California, insisted that she learn Wagner, and she insisted that she did not want to learn or do Wagner. This was in like 1930 or 1940, in 1940 or something. Or maybe it was funny because it was definitely after World War II. So for some reason, her vocal coach in Hollywood wanted her to learn Wagner and German opera in general. And it just turned her right off. And she kind of stopped doing opera at all. That was the end of her opera career at that point. And I don't know if it's because she was like, why can't I not step into this? Like, it was only 1940 or whatever. So she might have been like, why am I discriminating against this? And she didn't pick up the ball and just go find a different coach for whatever reason.
Because, ought not to trust that deep inner knowing, isn't it? And that's the thing that's different now, isn't it? By the way, I just have to say,
exactly.
The cat just arrived because it loves our frequency. She just wanted to almost come on my lap. Sadly not in the picture, but she's very happy that you're here. I can see that she's right here. She's very independent.
So when she walked in, I was talking about knowing yourself and loving yourself, and also, of course, opera.
It was a beautiful summary. I mean, we could just take that soundbite and you could just put that, and you could put that on your website. It's like, by the way, I want to put your links, obviously, to all of your GAIA work. So shall I use you? Yeah, sure. Under the description of this,
okay.
And I'll divide it into two pieces because they're kind of. It's almost it's quite lovely the way it happened in the two sections. I like that.
Yes, and we went into some pretty wild places. We went to a brothel in Berlin.
I didn't describe it though. Yeah, we did. And the moon landing that perhaps wasn't quite like it was.
I'll send you that video. It's got all this raw footage of the back scene of the moon landing film shoot. People are talking in the background. They're running that dune buggy, and it's making noise. It's not silent. And Neil Armstrong, the funniest one, and this has been going around the internet. I don't know if you've seen it, but he's walking off of the lander, and he's saying, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. And then something crashes in the background. And he's like, you're probably going to want to redo that, aren't you? And he's like, it's so funny. And of course, a little tiny bit of that did show up in one of the Monsters Incorporated Disney movies, something about something crashing in the back of the moon landing. So yeah, a big piece of lighting equipment crashed at that moment. And he's like, we're going to have to shoot this again, aren't we? And he was so bummed. These poor astronauts, they were soldiers as well as scientists, and they were being asked to do this crazy ass thing under the guise of national security, and they could never tell anyone. But then they had to go and act out this whole moon landing and then do all those press conferences afterwards where they're like, what did it feel like to walk on the moon? And none of the astronauts really felt like talking about it.
I mean, I like the idea that scenario happened, but there was also moon landing, possibly at a different time and in a different way.
Way.
Yes, I just think it's this fascinating layers of mass deception as ever, and it's when that realizes it's just the tack being held down in that ring exactly, and so that's why we need these discussions. We need to find out where our power is, what it is, how to use it, experiment with it, because we may be called upon when there are groups of people. It might just be that we wander quietly through a crowd, who knows? But I feel now is the time to what did you say? You said your ninja conversation skills. You have ninja conversation skills. I don't know what you're saying. You haven't developed them. You have them. So this is the time of that, isn't it?
Right, proper. And this is a fun idea. This idea of proper ladies discussing edgy topics that really matter. You know, saying what's really on their mind and being interesting enough people. It's not like The View. Like, it's as if you had The View, but with really interesting people.
Yeah.
And no stupid agenda, you know.
I get to talk to them. I think it's a really nice idea.
It's a great idea, and yet they're just so not being able to be themselves fully. That, you know, a panel of women like that can actually really put the kibosh on things and be real oppressors. You know, oh, we've decided that's not okay. That viewpoint's not cool. We're canceling you, you know.
Very, very scary.
But
yes.
To have The View with like 5 really interesting, crusty, salty, funny, sexy, unashamed, unabashed, and beautifully dressed women.
Now that would be something. I do feel I'm so too casual. See, I should have just gone for this. Then I would have matched you. See that?
Oh, I think you look wonderful. Those are your colors.
But of course, the pink is my color, so I had to. And we are now in an autumnal evening because tea can be drunk throughout the day.
I just love it. And spilled. Yes. Now, should we conclude this with something really edgy, like I wish we had like some sort of spicy 60-second sound.
Okay, let me just throw the original question, because I kind of left that in a corner because I thought that wasn't juicy enough for you, so hence went on to the other one of what you do when someone says no to you. So here's a guy who's fallen for you. He's come up to you. He's dared to open his mouth, and he's saying that he'd really like to go somewhere with you on a date, and you know he's just completely inappropriate. What would you say to him?
I would hold his hand. And of course, with age, I get to really do this because it's usually younger men who are doing this to me, but I suppose it could be a man my age or older. I would hold his hand and say, thank you so much for acknowledging me and making me feel so beautiful. I'm in a relationship right now, or if I wasn't, I would be, I'm really not interested in seeing anyone right now. Maybe we could go to lunch and just for enjoyment, but I'm really not interested in seeing anyone. But thank you so much for really feeling me. And I really appreciate your appreciation.
You see, that's the sum up of where we need to be today, isn't it? Because there's a lot of stuff we don't like and we don't want. A lot of stuff we want to avoid and run away from. And we can't always, and we have to find a way of dealing with it that in this, maybe it's spirit elegance. There's an elegance of spirit because we have to feel comfortable with how we are with whatever situation, how we have handled ourselves in whatever situation. And you've just shown kindness, compassion, truth, appreciation, honoring both you and the other. And I think you would probably make that person's day. Surprising.
Yeah.
It's a disappointment.
It's so lovely because it's just a very delightful way to break the matrix too, by making a real personal connection. You know, thank you for seeing me. Thank you for appreciating me. I'm not available, but I really feel just so cherished right now, you know? I just love that. But you know what it is, too? I really genuinely love men. I don't love the program that we've been put in, and I don't love what it's done to our minds, but I just love men. I love their gentle, sweet souls. And that's what I get presented with time and time again, is just gentle, beautiful, sweet, authentic, deep, resonant, gorgeous men.
And here you are, you know, we have been through a few decades of this life. And many people are crushed and embittered and burdened and weary. And here you are, as fresh as a daisy as you ever began life. Yes. And you're filled with this joy and love and this sparkle from your spirit coming forth from you. And that's so exciting. We have to see that. More of us have to start to realize that forget all this other stuff. It's nothing. It doesn't mean anything. When you keep tapping into what you truly are, that source of everything, you find whatever you want to find. And you're just a beautiful, sparkling example.
Thank you. Well, I have to say, while I was painting the walls and thinking snarky thoughts about dating, like, oh, clearly I'm too weird for you, would be that. So I definitely have my salty side.
Have them. Sometimes you've got to really put them off. If there's a bit of alcohol on the breath and some stinky clothes, you've got to come up with something salty.
Yeah, so in my heart of hearts, I can still be pretty salty. I have that crone in me who's like, ha, as if. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's having the freedom of choice to know when and how, and you're allowed to do that, isn't it?
Yes. We have to, and it really comes back down to that loving yourself unconditionally and going, yeah, because when I say I'm too weird for somebody, I'm like just trying to use the best descriptor that I can, that I'm probably too individialistic and too out there for most.
You're just too big. You could use that. I'm just too expanded.
I'm sorry, I'm too trippy. Yeah, no, I mean weird in the best possible way, for sure. I actually am in a little mini relationship right now with somebody who is not a truther, but he didn't get vaccinated. So there's that. But he doesn't know any of these other things. And I really probably should have told him from the very beginning that I was too weird for him. But it's starting to come to light bit by bit. And he always has the option,
Yeah, he's opted for the mind expansion program.
He came at me with such an open heart. Yeah, he came at me with such an open heart. I couldn't turn this prince away. That's what I'm cackling to myself about as I'm painting these walls, going, oh, you saw a prince, and you're like, oh, Princey Prince, I just can't say no. You're too wonderful. And now I'm feeling slightly cronely and like, oh, I'm too weird because this prince doesn't get it. But
But remember, in all fairy tales, the prince doesn't tend to do the magic stuff. It's generally, the females, you've got all these witches and wizards and fairy godmothers and stuff. So they do really good kind of solid action, and without them, nothing would happen in the fairy tale. So it's just, it's not that you're weird, it's just that you are different. That's all it is.
Yeah, no, I always use weird in the best of all possible ways. I feel it's a great word, and I enjoy it thoroughly. So
maybe that ancient spelling, W-Y-R-D.
Exactly, meaning knowing, yes. A deep knowing. So yes, he came at me with such a beautiful heart that I just couldn't turn him away. So now we get to play with what we do know and see what's going on.
So that's the alternative to turning someone away, isn't it? It's the adventurousness we were talking about, that it's like, well, why don't we just see where this is going?
Exactly. That's why
the power and clarity to move away from it should you need to, that. So why not?
I usually start with lunch. Lunch is a nice low stake. Lunch is better than coffee, I think, because you're eating something.
Yeah, and coffee in Germany, if someone comes up to you and says, do you want a coffee? It means something else.
Exactly. It's such a it's such a euphemism that is pointless, And especially if you don't even drink coffee, then it's like, oh, well, now you're already having a mini argument.
So lunch is a good way, and then tea for serious chats, obviously. Yes.
Tea is about. I'm just so grateful that you've created this container, because it always, everything you do, of course, always implies beauty and grace. Like that's just where you gravitate. So,
well, I've got my own weirdness as well, of course, in that mostly the way I live is a bit too much for other people, but they like a little droplet of it. So this is a good way of, like, a little droplet of me can come out into the world, and people will take that and maybe use it as some kind of medicine, and that's great. Well, I carry on in my own color madness weirdness.
Love it. Love it. I've got to tell you, I also have an ancestor that I'm not completely proud of. What was his name? Ulysses S. Grant is the president under which the U.S. stopped becoming a constitutional republic and started becoming a corporation. Mm-hmm. And now I know he was an alcoholic, and he did get the North through the Civil War, but I'm pretty sure it was on his watch that weird corporate, America the Corporation piece of paperwork under the Vatican was
yeah. And that war was designed anyway, wasn't it? Because they made a lot of money out of that. Abolishing
what a happening, and what a bloodbath.
That's why they let that happen, isn't it? So I'm sure it wasn't just him. He was like most people tied up. And then we'll say, oh, it's a certain group of bloodline people who do it. And of course it's not. It's not just one person. It's not just a little group. They're all controlled. And it's something else. Ultimately, it's the stuff that isn't source, which was source, which still must be source if it was source once. That's always the most intriguing thing I find.
That really is so interesting, because that means that the Luciferian idea or being is also a metaphor, because Lucifer was like very much the beloved and a golden angel and, all this stuff. And it's also sort of a metaphor for the adolescent, because the Luciferian fall was very much an adolescent type of rebellion. He wanted the throne, blah, blah, couldn't have the throne. So, yes, it is something that once was source that no longer is source. And there's so many ways to describe that. And yet there's always the pull back to source.
That logic dictates that it's impossible. If you were that and that was your origin, you can't get away from your origin because that's your origination. So even if you take a step away and say, okay, I'm not taking any handouts from you guys anymore, none of the connection to your energy, I want to do it by myself, and then it gets all sick and distorted and twisted and icky, it still means that by the time they've gone through the compost, they rot down to the same chemicals that everything else rots down to. And that's interesting in itself. So again, the people who are lost in despair at what they see and the tragedies, and they are real and palpable and awful. But if we take ourselves out of the limitations of time, which is so impacted in our matrix, we pull ourselves out and we say, what are we? We're spirit, part of this energy of everything. Time is a system, it's a program. And so if we say, okay, it seems like forever right now, but that's a program, it's something. It's a something, it's time, it's not everything. So even the icky, yucky, baddie stuff turns back into the components of the compost heap. Starts all over again, probably.
It's true. And this is why love is the only absolute. I mean, it makes everything safe,
So it's like,
once you're in love. What's that?
This cat who decided to move with me, who doesn't really belong to me, but I'm not really supposed to have a cat here, okay? But the cat came, and this cat just loves me. I love the cat. We just chat to each other every so often. I discovered that when you put your hands, the place cats would like to scratch it. If you put your fingers there, you can feel the vibration of their purr through your whole body, and it takes you into a theta brainwave state like that. So this cat is just like, right, I'm a love. I'm just a piece of love. I've decided to set up house in your house. I'm just going to sit here. And, that's amazing. This little creature decided to come and stay with me. And, of course, I give it some food. That's not much. Doesn't cost that much. But it's just said, I'm going to chill and just be with you. I don't really care what you do. No breakfast. Okay, I'll go and catch a bird. No supper. I'll go and catch a mouse. But I'm just going to stay with you because I like hanging out and just loving you and being. And that's interesting because it's just a different kind of love. Everything is a piece of love. The curtains, this, you, me, blah, blah. And we just have to start seeing it with different eyes, don't we?
Yes, you definitely said a mouthful when you said that time is a program. Because if you take time out of the equation, then you really have a lot.
Yeah. Hence the need for tea parties. They are just that timeless thing. So I think I better say adieu, because we will give a mighty sandwich to our audience with this. And thank you so much for being there, your glamorous beauty. And I wish you the rest of a happy birthday week as well.
Thank you so much. Beautiful. Very grateful. Yay! All right. Time.
Yeah. Oh,
Bye.